We are getting ready for the next session.
Not like yours.
I request Mr. Atul, Saran and Saran to take a seat. They are the speakers for our next session. I'd like to briefly introduce Mr. Atul, Saran to all of you gentlemen and ladies. Atul Saran joined EFI in October 2002 as country manager of EFI India. Atul's mandate is to build development, QA and operations center for EFI based out of India to support worldwide EFI operations. Atul is also responsible to help build the business for EFI's range of products in India. Prior to joining EFI, Atul was the managing director of SafeScript, a VeriSign affiliate. SafeScript became the first and only certificate authority licensed by Government of India to issue digital identity certificates in Feb 2002. Prior to SafeScript, Atul was President and Country Manager of Verifone, responsible for the Indian South region, where he worked with Citibank to launch Suvidha, a landmark payment solution. In a career spanning 2 decades, Atul has worked with global corporations like Chrysler, McDonnell Douglas, now a part of Boeing, Complete Business Solutions, Tata Consultancy Services, and as Technical Director of Hyron, UK, he set up the India Development Centre designed the national card phone system for Indonesia and bill payment system for PayPoint. Atul has been a member of many prestigious policy and standard forums like the Confederation of India Industry Subcommittee on Cyber Regulations and Capital Markets, Digital Committee of ASSOCHAM, and the Smart Card Forum of India, amongst others. He holds a bachelor degree in electronics and electrical engineering from BITS Pilani and a master's degree in business administration from IMS Indore. We also have Mr. Narayan Mahadevan, who is going to assist him. Mr. Narayan Mahadevan is the engineering head for MIS systems in India. Now, gentlemen and ladies, lady and gentlemen, we have more than one lady. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a little difficult subject here, so I request you to pay attention because this is the future. We are going to discuss JDF, which is the job definition format, and from what little I understand, it's a very interesting subject. It's the future. From what little I understand, and I get confirmation from Atul, that in our printing presses, we all have jobs, we all have orders, we all have instructions, correct? Right, everybody? So we all make this little plastic docket, and we put all those instructions inside, correct? Now that docket follows the job wherever it goes. The cutting instructions, the outputting instructions, the pagination instructions, which page goes first, second, third, fourth, everything to do with the job. What's the paper, what's the grammage, how many colors is the job, all that goes along with the job with this paper. And very often this paper is lost somewhere, or it gets mixed up with some other papers, something goes wrong, and we have a lot of confusion. Now with the digital workflow, we are trying to make that all electronic. And this electronic format is called a job definition format. It's electronic job ticket, which goes along with the job, and that's what we're here to talk to you about, and that's what Atul is going to talk with. As the subject is complicated, we have help from Narayan, who's hardcore into the development of these products, and EFI as a company works very closely with HP as a front end, and it's a very well-known name in all printing, digital printing applications. The other part of the session, which is going to take you through management information systems, is also later on. Bimal is going to take that session, which is also going to be very interesting. So I hand you over to Mr. Atul Saran. Atul, please give a big hand.
We're going to keep this small, and we're going to keep this very short session.
JDF standards is what we're going to talk to you about, and in reality, it's a complex subject. It's really the essence of the printing business. It's a 1,000-page document which really lays down the JDF standards. So we're not going to really get very deep into that. We're just going to give you a business perspective of JDF standards and a little bit of what some of the terminology in the JDF standard, what it means. So the way we're going to go about this, I'm going to talk to you why JDF, why do we need those standards, number one. Two, I'm going to talk to you about what's the new way the printing business is evolving and how JDF would play a role in that. And then finally, I'm going to hand it over to Narayan, who's going to kind of take you more into what is JDF when we say job definition format, what it really means at a very, very high level. And then we just come back to where the world is today on JDF standards. So we're just going to keep it short. So the first thing is, let me ask, how many people have heard of JDF? Very good. I'm impressed. Thank you. So how many of you have really gone and studied the development of JDF in the last 6 or 9 months? Where it is going? Okay. Just before I start, I just need to talk about EFI, which I represent, which is really a company, part of the JDF standard forming body called SIP4, and we are aggressively working closely with all the other players within that standard body to drive that. EFI is a company with about 1,700 people now and 24 offices worldwide. It's the technology company in the printing business. We purely are a software company until a few months back when EFI acquired one of the hardware companies which you would have heard of in the super high format or den format printing called ViewTech, the ViewTech machines. So with that, we actually get into the hardware business as well, and ink business. There are really 3 divisions of EFI, and one is the FIRE controller, which is the digital standard, really, de facto standard for digital print controllers. Then we have the professional print applications, where we will be talking to you about the MIS, the Management Information Systems, because EFI is the leading provider, world's #1 in terms of the management information systems for printing shops, commercial printers, digital printers, hybrid printers, gravure, flex, whatever it may be. And then the third area is really the area of ViewTech, which is a new acquisition. So with that, we'll just move on to the topic. So what's today's problem? Today's problem is the whole world is moving towards just-in-time, whether it's just-in-time manufacturing, just-in-time delivery, whatever. There is the speed at which, with the digital revolution coming in, things are moving faster and faster. And the communication becomes an extremely essential element of it. The better the communication within the various entities, be it your customers, you, your suppliers, be it within the departments, within your print shop, communication is what drives your business. Any miscommunication can result in a very, very costly error. And the time that you would then spend to rectify it and the repercussions that it may have on your customer, on your relationships with your customers, could be irreparable damage which is not measurable. So it's extremely important, and as we will see down the line, how JDF really affects communication. What are the benefits of JDF? We'll come to that. So current process, you have your customer, you have to deliver product to him, a print product, you have the production side, and you have the business side. Today, if you look at all the elements within your business, There are so many elements, and the final product that goes to the customer is what he wanted. So you need to make sure that right from the point, what the customer communicated to you needs to go through your whole organization, and at every aspect, at every stage in your production process, that information is known. Not only that, you are into business for making money. At the end of the day, at every stage, you need to know what's the cost implications, what are the time implications, what are the wastage implications. I'm not sure how many of you know, there was a study done in US. How much is the raw material constituting as the cost of a print product? Can anyone tell me? Very good. So depending on the print product, it could be 30 to 70%. So any mistake in there, you actually will already would have made the mistake in terms of, whether you're now going to generate a profit on that product or you're going to have a loss on that. You need to know exactly what's happening there. You need to know. The wastage is a key element of the business. If you're not measuring your wastage, you might be thinking, oh, I'm making a good profit on this deal, but you may not be. So it's extremely important that every level you have that communication, you have that information available to the next, from the previous stages to the next stage. Today's processes are not integrated. They are not linked together. So the world and a lot of people in the printing industry are proposing that that's the new solution, is to look at printing as a manufacturing industry and call it computer integrated manufacturing. Every job that you take is a job that you're manufacturing. Treat it as a manufacturing industry, and like a manufacturing industry. However, what's the difference? The difference is, in most manufacturing industries, you produce the same product again and again. It's once you set the assembly line. In printing, every single product is a different product. Every job is different. The paper, the ink, the amount of ink, the steps it may go through may be different. So it's a more challenging situation than where you're producing the same product again. Now there are two aspects in our business, as we said. One side is about the financial side of it. How, okay, you give me a quote what this job will cost. Okay, once you negotiate the price, then you give me an order. I will take the order based on what specification you have of the job, whether it's a four-color job and spot colors and all those things. You take my order, you take the order from the customer, and then it goes. Then I look at, do I have enough in terms of, do I have the raw material to produce this job, whether it's paper, ink, do I have the presses available, do I have because there may be other jobs going into the press. All of that you look at it, and then you actually look at what this job is going to cost me, what am I quoting, and so am I making a profit in it. And then you really decide and say, let's do this job. On the other side, you have the content coming in, that these are the images, these are the text, and all of these will I need to set it up, show it to the customer, get his approval, based on that approval, that this is how I want the job to be produced. Then you do your pre-press processes, whether it's trapping and pre-flighting and all of that, and then you put into your presses, and then after that you go into the binding and finishing and all those, and finally producing the inventory of finished product, which then you may also want, whether if the customer wants that you want to hold this warehouse, that inventory, and then to do fulfillment, distribute 5,000 copies to this office and another 10,000 to another office, take care of that as well for the customer. So you have two aspects to your business. How do we integrate these two aspects? And that's where we are saying that you need to build in an integrated model of computer integrated manufacturing. And that's how we would be able to, now we'll get into why SIM. Why do we need computer integrated manufacturing? Yeah, just took an example, and this is what I talked about. So you have a typical job. You know that the cost of paper is so much in this job and other materials, and the cost of production in terms of labor cost. And this is what the profit I'm going to make. But if you don't have, if you have incomplete information, if you have old information that was 3 jobs back, this is what's going to happen. Because what was your estimate and what it actually took, your profit got really reduced. So you made a decision, yeah, thumb rule, and a lot of you, I'm sure, being in the business for last 20 years or so, would make probably the right decision. But is that a scalable business model? You would have, if you are growing your business, you're not going to be there all the time with all the jobs coming in to make those decisions, or be left with that much amount. So you will need to depend on the next level of people within your organization. How are you so sure that they are making the right decision? So you need to have a way of making decisions not just on gut feel, on experience, on 20 years I'm in the field, so I know what I'm doing, but a more scientific manner so that it's a scalable model. You can ask someone else to do that and be sure that, yeah, that I will not lose money in this job. Okay? So until you have job costing data is incomplete, the exact costs are difficult to pinpoint, you really thought
the workflow can talk the same language, so we don't stand into any miscommunication. So that is the fundamental goal or vision behind JDF. So let's look at this, one of the examples here. We can see that the customer service rep is sitting out there and taking order from the customer. So the job is started here. Now it goes either to your, I can point it well. So here the customer service rep is taking, so this is where the job is actually beginning. So here, this actually depicts the life cycle of a job. Today you are carrying it in a paper format and going through each step. So it goes from here to a digital house, and then goes to the pre-press, and then finally to the production. So in essence, I go through multiple components to finally deliver the job. So it should be one format so that, at least, as Atul talked about in the previous slide, I increase my productivity. Because if, for example, there is a customer name involved, it is going to flow through each one of them. You have no choice. And you at least, if you have a system, you're not rekeying it, or as Mr. Poonawalla pointed out, if you have paper kind of a thing, you're not misplacing it, or you're not, so at least it's in one place. So before I get into this slide, I'll talk about what we understand of a job ticket. Job ticket actually captures the complete life cycle of the job, from the time it got created, because the customer came and gave their intent, to the time it went into your pre-press house, to the time it went to your press, to the time it went to your finishing, and to the time it got delivered, to the time it was invoiced, to the time account was received. All the details sit in a job ticket. So job ticket has the whole life cycle of the job. So that is the intent behind a JDF. JDF should have everything pertaining to a job, right from the time it got created to the time it was invoiced, to the time it got, the accounts got the account receivables. So at each and every stage, JDF is there. It is a communication medium which is going from the time you took the job to the time it went, this is an MIS server, to the time it went to your pre-press, to the time it went to your press, to the time it just got delivered. So JDF job flows everywhere, and it maintains a job ticket which has complete life cycle of that job. So, before I talk about JDF as an automation enabler, I would rather try to give you what JDF contains. JDF, you must have heard this, that there is something called product intent, there are process nodes. So in essence, JDF has something called product intent. Product intent is nothing but what is the intention of the customer is. So here, it is actually trying to capture what my customer wants in a clear, detailed specification way. And then, the next part of the JDF is how I'm going to manufacture it. So what are my processes, what are my operations that are involved to manufacture it? And finally, it talks about how I'm going to put all this production plan that I have together to really manufacture it. And lastly, how I can communicate with the device to get the real-time data. What is my wastage? How much quantity I have produced? So I can do a better judgment. So here, as you can see, this is an example of few of our products which are JDF enabled. So from a web submission, it is going to the pre-press, and from pre-press, it is going to the press. All is one standard format that's going. So I will now take you through a typical JDF data exchange. And here, I'll try to show you what kind of data that flows across the multiple systems which are involved along the line of production. So I have a job submission system where I take in the job and it goes to my MIS. I have an MIS system which, and keep in mind, each and every system that I'm going to show you here, all the devices I'm going to show here, it is vendor diagnostic. So it doesn't care which vendor it comes from. If the vendor is JDF enabled, I can plug it and play it real time without worrying about integration, which is very important. So it gives you a flexibility to go to whichever vendor you want, buy that product, and easily integrate for the job lifecycle. So from the job submission system, it goes to your MIS, and these are the product intent. These are clearly taken from JDF spec. So each one, here you give the binding intent, the color intent, the delivery intent, what is my press intent, they are all that is defined in the JDF. So the next stage, it goes from here, and JDF has some terminology called controller. And what controller is doing is basically a production planner. It can take the intent that the customer has given, convert it into the processes that's needed to manufacture it, and then have a workflow to sequence it. So we talked about from here, let me go back. So here so I took the intent and it converted it into processes automatically. So you are not, you are verifying it, but you are not doing it manually. So there is a good automation involved here. And JDF allows me to do that. So from there I go to my pre-press house, and then this is basically the resources that are needed for the pre-press house to do pre-flight or proofing or scanning or whatever it is in the pre-press house that I do. Right? So JDF clearly, the controller clearly knows, for example, he knows if I have to go to CTP machine, I need to rip the job report. So it builds that workflow into it and drives these devices. So the next is the press. It interacts with the press, gets the real-time data. At the same time, it can analyze the press and understand what kind of, what's the speed at which it can do the work. So here, whatever data exchange that you're saying, they are clearly taken from JDF. It's pretty much what you face in the real world that is put in a spec form so that multiple systems can really, and devices can integrate easily. So it's going to the cutting, and then this is kind of the processes and this kind of data exchange that goes behind, and finally to binding, and finally to shipping. So so you can see that JDF not only allows me to integrate, but at the same time it really increases my productivity and gives a better result out. So in essence, this example, what it shows is that JDF, if I want to have, like Atul talked about SIM, computer integrated manufacturing, I need a common language to integrate all this piece, and JDF is the answer for that. Let Atul take it.
So now we'll try and connect why do we need JDF in delivering it. Just now I talked about that if all of these, if we know the information at each print production process, and if we can automate that system and make sure that the information is available to the next stage and to a information system, then we can sit and control the whole production process and ensure that the right details about the job are being fed real time into the next process, so that the decision making is better. And once that happens, you can find that you can control the job in an integrated manner and not piecemeal, because you can take decisions based on real time information that is getting generated. So JDF has the technical power to meet the requirements of cross-product integration. Now, let's talk about what's reality. This is all technology, we want this, looks great, beautiful idea. Is it feasible? SIP4 is a consortium which was formed out of vendors, customers, supply chain in the printing industry, over 200 members who all sat together to look at the holistic view, not from a vendor's point of view, not from the customer's point of view, not from the supply chain point of view, from everyone's point of view, to come up with a common standard. Now, just to give you the power of a common standard, to draw you a parallel of what a common standard can give you, all of us know that irrespective of which cell phone we use, we can go to another cell phone, another region, and I can still use my cell phone even if my service provider is not in that region. That's the power of GSM standards. You can go to another country, another continent, and still use your cell phone. That's the power of a common standard. It allows you to, as a consumer, as a customer, be able to leverage the collective knowledge of everyone and the collective infrastructure of everyone. Because everyone talks to each other in a common language, and that's what JDF is. So the JDF was, the whole genesis of JDF was to come up with some kind of a common language which various elements in the printing industry, whether it's the devices, the presses, the image setters, the proofing devices, all of them, the softwares, the workflow softwares, the job submission software, all of that, the machines, they will all talk a common language so that you can build an automation. So, good question is, okay, as I said, that's all very great in theory. What's really feasible? Is it really feasible? Is it really happening? For how long the JDF's been there and is really happening? Is people actually doing this? So there is an interop forums which JDF holds periodically, where the companies who manage those softwares, those components, those devices come together to demonstrate interoperability between them. Let me give you, again, draw a parallel here. And Bombay was some time back very read about my background. And I'm a founder member of Smart Card Forum of India, which was a technology which the Reserve Bank of India, the banks out here, which is State Bank of India, the Canara Bank, all, they wanted to have a common payment method, substituting cash. A lot of you are probably aware of a card, a Petro card, which is now very well known. Before a Petro card could be launched, which represented money, now there is money, electronic money on that card. The Reserve Bank said, I need to have a standard which is interoperable. You may be a consumer of one bank, and I should be able to go anywhere and be able to use that card. Until the standard is not interoperable and you can demonstrate it, we are not going to accept this. It took 3 years, I driving it along with Dr. Pathak from IIT Bombay, to get that standard where we demonstrated that multiple banks, multiple vendors, multiple people, they came together and demonstrated that irrespective of whom you buy your cards from, which are two of the giants in the smart card industry worldwide, whom you buy your accepting devices of those cards from, whom you buy the software from, it's all interoperable. That's exactly what the reason why all standards go with an interop, is to ensure that theoretically everyone can talk. Can you show it? Can you make me see that it is interoperable? Can you make me see that one software from another vendor, another device from another, can they talk seamlessly? If you can show me, then I'll be convinced, yes, this standard works. So, how do I ensure that everyone claims that they are compatible? They claim that I'm JDF compatible, I'm JDF compliant, play of words. So how do you know that they are really? So, Graphic Arts Technical Forum is the first formal certification test center where they will test whether a particular product is really JDF compliant. Compatible and compliant are different words. Compatible means, yeah, I do implement a JDF, but I may not be. JDF is a 1,000 page standard. It may have hundreds of things. I may decide not to implement more than the basic common minimum mandatory standard that is defined in there. So the standard will have common minimum things to be met and then other additional things. So point is, how my implementation is, you may say compatible. Only when you have a certification then you say, I'm compliant. So what it really helps us achieve? Oops, sorry. What it really helps us achieve is, as we said, the different vendors, different elements of your print production process, can I mix them in my workflow to create my own workflow and not be really tied down to the manufacturer's workflow that comes along with them, or tied down to a particular device because only that device is supported by a particular software. It allows you that multiple vendors, pieces from multiple vendors can all be put, and they are all JDF compatible, compliant, and they can talk to each other, and I can build my integrated print production process. that slide, it also shows, for example, in this slide, it shows that you have an MRS system and a device talking to each other. Now that's called a pair. If you say identification of product pairs, so it's showing that these two can talk. Similarly, a press and proofing device probably can talk. A CTP device and a printing press can talk. So it's another pair. So the question is, how do we measure? We said, how do we measure it's actually happening? So this tells you how many such pairs are actually happening, where a particular system, a software and a press pair is working. Because in the interops you demonstrate and say, yeah, this one's working, this one's not working. You go fix it, come back. So as the number of pairs that are growing, you would know that, yeah, now with X vendor, these products works with Y vendors, these products. So I have 3 other vendors' products. And these pairs are now certified. So if you see, companies' interoperable pairs is growing. The pairs are identified, means what's going on. This is work in progress. So many people have identified, they're saying, yeah, I want to support. Let's talk to each other. Let's make sure that your product and my product talk on a JDF. And so it is, the numbers are growing. And this is a 2003 data. I tried to find out updated data. I couldn't. So what in reality will finally happen? This is how EFI sees this. This is how your print shop will look like. You would have EFI products, which are web submission products to get customer to submit the data, the creative content of your job. Or you could have third-party products, maybe developed by yourself, maybe developed by someone else. They will all link in to the JDF into the MIS, so all the information will come into the MIS, will be one element of your print shop management. But they will also flow into through the JDF into your print press, your proofing, your RIP softwares, your machine interfaces from where you can collect the data back into your MIS systems, and then onto the presses, which may be digital, web offset, sheet fed offset, whatever. This is how you would be able to integrate your entire print production process and automate. So that's the goal that you want to reach. And as, now, for example, you may not like a particular proofing product from EFI. And you say, well, I want someone else's EFI proofing product in here for my specific reasons. What would you do? You would put that third-party printing product here, and it should work the same in terms of receiving information and giving information out to the rest of the system without any issues, because it is JDF compliant. And if the rest of the products of EFI are JDF compliant, then it should work. And that's where everyone wants to reach. It gives you freedom, because certain softwares will do certain things better, certain devices will do certain things. Based on your business needs, based on your jobs that you're doing, you may, the kind of jobs you get, you may want to choose one over the other. It gives you the freedom to choose. So that's how JDF links the business side of it and the customer and the creation side of it to create an integrated manufacturing system. So what can I do now? So how do I get to JDF and how? So look at solutions that integrate content and business management, first thing. That's your first step. Because if not, then they are standalone islands. Try and adopt industry standards. It's tough. At times people say, well, standards are always a moving target. Yes, they are. But then, are you going to wait till by which time you would be nowhere, you wouldn't be existing. You need to keep pace. All of us keep pace with changing lifestyle around us. It's always a pressure, but that's what you need to do if you don't want to be left behind. Try and go. It could be done phase-wise. Start looking at your print production process. It's not that everything has to be done on one day or in one shot. Pick up one area, start with one end and say, okay, let me try and get this print production process more organized, ensure that I can make it more digitized, more electronic format, and after that you can continue with the rest of the process in the same way. Then you take up the next phase of the project and you pick up the next piece and then work on it. So you implement in a phase-wise manner, and you would find that it's definite success, because you're not trying to attempt too many things and change all over the place. Because when you change a process, it's not just about changing something on people, it's changing about people's habits, it's changing about how you view the business, it's changing about how you view your customer, how you view your employees. There is a lot to it. So don't try to tackle everything in one shot. Take it one step at a time. Today's business, the pressures are that your customer wants you to be available 24/7. I don't know how many of you know, India is now becoming the third largest country in the world with the large number of internet users. You may not realize it, but your customers are there online. You're not there for them. You have to be visible to them. They will like to access you if you can be visible to them. Refine and perfect production, so these will control your sales success. You build standards. Anything which is, once you have a standard, you can measure against it. Once you can measure against it, you can know how I can reduce or increase it, the deviation from the standard. And once you can do that, you can control the process. So the first step is to put a standard. That's the basic thing. If you don't have a standard, you don't know where you are. How will you measure it? And if you won't measure it, how will you manage it? Thanks. Any questions?
Thank you, Atul. Thank you, Saran. I think I had a fantastic seminar. It's beautiful. It has probably made people realize the benefits and the powers of this JDF and Management Information System. So with that, I would like to thank Atul and Saran for a lovely presentation. If there are any questions, I would like to take them quickly. I have 5 of them at table, I've not brought them here. But I'd like to know from the creation point of view, when we start a job, it starts, let's say, at an advertising agency. So can they be part of the process of doing that JDF, docket filling, making that ticket for the part that they require?
Yes. The web submission softwares which you would use would actually take the customer information and create a job ticket, and that job ticket can be a JDF compliant job ticket. And if you want to add more.
And then you can keep adding to the process as you go along.
Yeah, as you go along.
So when the job comes in from your customer online in a web submission manner or in a CD form, it can go into the same software, both from a web online or through a CD form, into that software, submission software, which can allow you to specify the entire job ticket. And that would actually generate a JDF ticket, which will then can go into your pre-processed software, you can go into all the other JDF-enabled pieces down the line.
So that solves one big problem of getting a job order, because it comes with the job. And I think that will really help the business.
Right, so you won't have the discussions that, no, I didn't tell you this and I had that, I told you that, but you printed this.
Right. So I think that sort of solves a lot of problems, and one should look at maybe having a seminar with agencies. We have a few friends from our agencies here, but maybe another one to explain to them the creation process and how the thing can happen. So it becomes a part of an ordering system, and it takes away a lot of anomalies of in the process. Any question? Any other questions? Vimal. Mike? Vimal? Mike Vimal. Yeah.
We all know that in the printing industry, we don't attract the kind of talent and people because they are obviously more glamorous industries which young boys and girls go to. And I remember a long time ago, my grandfather used to always say, make the system simple so that all the information fits in a shoebox, because it's important that your staff who is not as well educated can understand the system. Now I'm just wondering that now with ADF and the systems becoming so complicated, would we be able to implement these in our print shops, given the kind of skills that we attract, the talent that we attract, which is not of the caliber which other software or other manufacturing companies attract?
So let me answer this question. It's a very interesting question. Let me ask you a question. A lot of you guys use a very complex software in your pre-process, in your other workflows, and your operators, after some starting hiccups, get to learn those softwares. Because at the end of the day, all of us are very used to, let's say, how many of you use your computer in a Windows software? Lots of us, right? Windows is an extremely complex software, but you learn the level that you want to deliver. There are hundreds of features in there. You may not want to use all of them, and you may not want to learn all of them until you really need them. More and more you will find that in many of EFI products, we are building in what we call as computer-based tutorials. So as you really need that feature, you can learn, teach yourself. It will take some time. You will have to have the people selling you the software and code you, train you. It will take some initial stage. But I haven't seen in India, even in the printing industry, they are today using more complex software than we're talking about here. The other thing is that doesn't mean that it's not the onus on the companies who are producing these to not make them as simple as possible. And ease of use is a very important element because, for example, if I can, in one software, if I can take an image and if I can preview the image after I have changed the background, then I don't know how it will look. I'm only guessing. In another software, I can see that the background has changed. This is how it looks. It's not looking good. I can change it. So I have more information. That is the difference between one software to another, is to how much they really focus on from a customer perspective to make it. So a lot of companies like EFI, we do focus. For us, the user interface is an extremely important element. It is the element which will make or break the desire for a user to use the software. So you're right.
Just to add to Atul, a couple of things, that I just came back 2 years back to India after being in US for 12 years. What I see bottom line is that we are the best adapters to technology. That's fundamentally true. ATM just took 5 years to penetrate each mom and pop. My grandfather was 80 years old, used ATM. And no other country you can see adapting technology so quickly as we in India do. Second thing is that JDF tries to reduce the complexity and reduce the keying that happens at every stage. So a lot of that load is taken by the software which sits behind it, and the user entry is very limited, kind of drag and drop kind of a thing. So that's how it improves the productivity and improves efficiency.
So is this $1 million software?
Then we'll talk about it.
So it's $500,000, is it? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I think we'll break for lunch, and we'll be back in half an hour. I look forward to seeing you, everybody. I think everyone looks very, very hungry, and I hope you had a very nice session. Thank you. very much.